just thought I'd say something about these the statue being built down in Bristol, and it's interesting how people have taken an interest to lots of these public sculptures about the place, and actually looking at them and thinking, oh yeah, what is this about? Because generally people just walk past them, flip by you and leave. It's interesting how many represent the elite side of society and how little they represent, say, a working class side of society. So pulling the thing down in Bristol, it served one good purpose of helping people to reassess what these symbolic gestures from past days actually mean. And for that, it's a good thing. So, the protection of false symbols, a phenomenon that is so entrenched in our lives and in our sense of identity, it becomes a major stumbling block to human progress. We know the world is changing, it needs to change, and we can't keep clinging to symbolic politics. The old symbols that have worked to shield the elite from their dirty doings are fading and losing their ability to manipulate and impress citizens. Meanwhile, behind the facade of symbolism is the hollowing out of the citizens' agency and ability to act. As the citizenry slowly awakens to the ruse, the elite ramp up the glorification of symbolic worship, attracting the worst elements of human nature in order to protect the holy shrines and sanctity of the status quo. In this, there is no limit in how low the protectors of capital will stoop, as we witness. But it's something we need quickly to become aware of in moving on in a struggle against imperialism and understanding these tools that's used to preserve it. So this worship of symbolism is brainwashed into us from an early age. As the Jesuits are credited as saying, give us the child till the age of 7 and he'll give you a good Catholic for life, or words to that effect. And what the Jesuits don't manage, and if God doesn't get you, school will, through a whole range of theories and the manipulation of the malleable young mind. The symbolism of colour when I was a child growing up in Glasgow gave that if you wore a blue jumper, you were Protestant. If you wore a green jumper, you were a Catholic. People in working class communities became so infatuated by these two colours that every other hue went out the window. And the only concern was in these. And I remember as a kid being chased out of neighbourhoods, depending on what colour of jumper I had on. And I couldn't articulate to my mother, don't knit me any more jumpers, these colours, or they have serious consequences in my ability to roam. And these things kind of stick with you, that they're a kind of all-encompassing in lots of ways, particularly when you're very young. And I remember going down to London when I was about 17, and the same kind of thing, people would find out where you come from and they would ask, what team do you support? And it wasn't particularly what team you support, it was which one of the teams do you support? Is it Rangers? Is it Celtic? And that was their expectations when they came across a Glaswegian. And I was never brought up to think that way, and I could never give an answer to these binary type questions. They just of no interest to me, even at that age. So we're looking at this people pulling down a statue in Bristol, throwing it into the drink, and the amount of noise from kind of right-wing podcasters about it's outrageous, the country's coming to rack and ruin, it's going to be the disrespect for public property, etc, etc. And the idea probably pulling the statue down wasn't, let's go and pull every statue down we can see. It was that particular statue that people had tried to get, be taken down for years. There was lots of people in that community didn't like what that statue represented. So it wasn't just a fly-by-night, let's rip the statue down. And, let's face it, you need to break a few eggs to make an omelette. The whole idea about taking the statue down was to create a conversation. But it's a conversation that the right wing don't want to enter. Because once you start speaking about these things, people actually start realising what lies behind the symbolism. And it becomes these symbols become a kind of security blanket, both for the ruled and the ruler. So it becomes easier to protect the symbol rather than causes or having to think any further. And people get used to this idea of it becoming part of their heritage, even though lots of the times it's completely working against them. And basically, these things are put up to protect wealth. They're not put up because people are so proud of the idea. It's not people that decide to put them up anyway. It's usually the government or the ruling classes. And we've become so used to them that we actually forget their history. They just become a thing that you're used to seeing the whole time and you don't think twice about it. So instead of opening up that conversation, right-wing channels decide to determine that the country's coming to wreck and ruin, and it's all about vandals and anarchists ripping things down, and they completely forget the notion of why it's been ripped down. And it's only a statue, it's only a bit of tin sitting up in a plinth, it's not a life and death moment. So anyway, back to these symbols are about how to control and manipulate perceptions. Because if they were put there for the sake of people, there'd be more people on the plinths. Because this island, this country, this island has produced many great people who have done great things for all different classes and different things. There's no shortage of people that we could be putting on plinths to celebrate, and some of them are quite questionable, the ones that's up just now, but some of them you don't need to think too long to realise, I don't think this should be here. But anyway, the other thing is how if there's any troubles up and down the land, the first thing that happens is the Queen's rolled out up to quell the natives, and people watch television, they start weeping when they see Her Majesty. I don't think they know why they're weeping, it's just something they're used to, and something people tell them that should be proud of. I don't mind the royal family so long as you don't take them too seriously. But when it comes to the point, they're there to manipulate the public conscience, then it becomes a wee bit difficult. But people are waking up a wee bit, and the elites know this change is beginning to happen. That's why they react so much to the protecting the symbols rather than discussing the questions that are being brought up. So public infrastructure, ruined, upheaval, it's the end of the world rather than the beginning of something new. So in a way we'll begin to start seeing how our colonial past can be sanitised. Now in Glasgow, for instance, we have the Merchant City, which has become a sort of cultural centre for the arts and different things like that. And people are just in lots of ways oblivious to the fact that it was created through slavery, the buildings, the names of the streets and all these different things. So people are so that nobody's running about trying to rip down the whole of the Merchant City. But when we become aware of what it represents, we can reshape how people perceive these places. And that would be that would weaken the whole idea about architecture and sculptures and public artworks as just being something that protects elites and the stories of elites and our dodgy past. Then we have things like the poppy the red poppy, wearing the red poppy, you know, and if you wear a white poppy, you're some kind of insult to the people that died in the two great wars. And really, the white poppy represents the same thing as the troops who died in the great wars, and every sympathy with their families and the great losses for many people. But that is particularly the point of the white poppy. It's not only to do that, but it's to remind you why they died, why they were sent there in the first place. And it's also to remind you that our young people are still being sent to these wars. So it's to keep it. So if people were talking about commemoration of war, they'd also be speaking about the ongoing wars. You know, it didn't just happen in the First World War and the Second World War. But that symbol needs to be contained within that structure, because it has to be framed within these two wars rather than as opening it up to war in general. And of course, the kids watching, I was using some software and it was related to gaming, the gaming industry, and any instruction videos I was looking at, it was games, and it was just horrible. You know, it was just slaughter. It was just blood and bones flying all over the place. And every mention of games was always about a war game. And it's interesting, just the technology that you use to play a game on the internet is exactly the same technology you used to send a drone over Afghanistan or someplace else. And the kind of transition of this technology where a kid could be sitting playing a game and it could be easily transferred onto a real life situation, because the infrastructure, the connection is no different. It's just a screen with people on it. They could be imaginary or they could be real. But it's quite frightening how much the whole gaming industry is about death. It's about killing and death. Which brings me on to another aspect, the arms industry, the euphemisms in the arms industry. When they call bombs, they've got rockets and missiles, and they call them, let's see here, we've got peacekeepers. We've got rockets and stuff called peacekeepers. We've got clean bombs, we've got smart bombs, sidewinders, stealth missiles, Patriot missiles, Tomahawks. And these things are like, well, for instance, we have collateral damage, the whole language, the whole symbolic language of warfare is this, you don't talk about bombs that splatter kids across the pavement and create all sorts of misery that lasts for years and killing families and just wrecking things, blowing things apart. You have to call them peacekeepers so you can get the funding of people. But imagine if you were looking for funding for a stealth missile and you actually explained to people what these things did when they hit the ground. I think you'd have a wee bit more problems getting funding for them. So this whole symbolisation of these things being, peacekeepers, and the Israeli army, when the regular onslaught on the Palestinians, is referred to as mowing the lawn. That's every couple of years when they go out and blast off Palestinians without a by your leave. It's called mowing the lawn. So this terminology is how the arms industry discuss it as business, but they'll never discuss the horrific consequences of dropping one of these bombs. And then we have the Americans again deciding who and who shouldn't have an atom bomb, and they're the only people that's ever dropped an atom bomb. So they're the guys the peacekeepers, who should decide who should and shouldn't have atom bombs. About the situation that's happening just now concerning these these statues and things being pulled down. But hopefully people will start thinking about them again and start looking at these things and questioning these things that are there and seemingly represent us as a people. So we need to remember these monuments are a memory of the people who were lost in the Great Wars, but they also can be part of the glorification of past war. And we need to keep in mind the horror and loss of these wars and the horror and loss of the next war, send our young people to. So while the focus is kept on the symbols, while we are continually encouraged to protect the symbols of statehood unquestioned, we have become compliant to what we're told they represent, and we deny ourselves the critical thinking of what these symbols really represent and our fundamental right to deny them as representing us or we as a people.